We are back for another episode of Sound of Hockey's Kraken Takeaways. Darren Brown here along with John Barr. John, I have to say, I don't know if I should admit this out loud, but I kind of thought this would be our last episode of this for the season. Just part of me, I guess. Part of me thought that. What did you think?
Well, I mean, it was always a possibility, and I was terrified going into the day, and yesterday, that is, on Sunday. And yeah, I realized it could have been the last time we watched a Kraken game for the season. And I was nervous, excited. There was a lot of buzz around the city, and it was fun to see, but I was also still terrified. So yeah, I understand.
So I got to be there. This brings us to our first official topic, which is where were you for Game 7? The reason that we worded it like this, I think that this is going to be one of those games that sticks with people for a really long time. Like I remember some big games from when I was a kid, right? Like high school age, very specific moments where I was, things that I said during the game, things that happened during these games. I think this is going to be one of those games that sticks with people for so long because of just how momentous this was for the franchise and what it means for the city, for the fan base, for everything. So I think there's something to that. I had the good fortune of being there, which was awesome. We're recording this kind of late morning on Monday. I flew back on the 6 a.m. flight this morning to get back here, and I really planned that poorly in retrospect because what I didn't factor in was the fact that if they actually won in Game 7, which the Kraken did do, if the Kraken won in Game 7, obviously I was going to want to like party it up a little bit, right? So, so that was stupid planning, but man, I wouldn't have traded it for anything. It was so much fun to be in that building last night, and you could really feel the excitement from the fans kind of left towards the end of the second period, and then they scored right with in the last minute of that second period, and it felt like it came alive again. I was like, oh, here we go again. But man, just what an effort by the Kraken. What a night.
Yeah, and that's just adds to the hockey lore, right? Mm-hmm. And we've kind of talked about this is the first time Seattle's experiencing playoff hockey. That's the Seattle fans for a lot of new fans. And you know, we've seen this from afar on other franchises or our previous franchises that we were rooting for. And you're right. It's a signature moment. It's one of those things where people are talking about it. Think about like people in the office, right? They're going to be talking about it today. And I've already had a couple of calls today where people like asked about it. People that do not watch hockey, it's on their radar. So pretty cool for the city right now.
Yeah. Philipp Grubauer was phenomenal last night. He had a very good series in general, but last night was far and away his best performance, I think, of the series. And he truly stole the game. I think without him, the season is over 100%. The first period, especially, he was outstanding, stopped 16 of 16 shots that were thrown at him. And you could tell from the jump that pucks are hitting him, right? I asked him about that again last night, because that's one of my favorite things I've heard him say was that some nights pucks just hit you. And it's such a good thing for a goalie. And, last night he had one that hit like the shaft of his stick, right? And he had that huge save on McKinnon with, I think it was like 9 minutes left in the first. And you're like, he might be dialed in tonight. And as the period went on, you started to see like, okay, yes, he's really dialed in. But the Kraken were kind of hanging him out to dry too. They'd get penned into their zone forever. That he'd make a huge save to get a whistle, and then they'd lose the face-off and they'd keep going in the defensive zone. And it just, man, he was so good last night. And you could tell it was really special for him to win that series against his old team. There's a pretty cool moment after the game where one of the Kraken social media people asked him to take a photo with a fish. You know, they do that bit. And she was like, all right, I'll take the fish back. He's like, no, I want to keep this one. So kept it for his own personal collection, which was really awesome. So big. It
was awesome. And to see his celebration at the end, him jumping up and down, I thought that was, for somebody who clearly does not show a lot of emotion, right? Like even, at the peak of his game, he doesn't show a lot out there. And to see him jump for joy like a little kid was really cool.
It was.
He was awesome. He was such a force in this series and we've been talking about it, right? I think he's been a subject of our takeaways multiple times so far. Definitely. So
and cool. with good reason, credit where it's due. And he has taken his lumps from the fan base here in these first two seasons. And at times rightfully, like I think last season was really, really hard for for him and for the fans that expected so much of him coming in. And he didn't have a great season, right? Even beginning of this season, people were, they, as soon as the Kraken lost a game, they jumped down his throat, or whatever that saying is.
Yeah.
And so I think there's still some of those folks out there, right? But man, I think he had to have bought himself some leeway here moving forward with this series, because it was pretty spectacular. Another hero of the night was Oliver Bjorkstrand, who had not scored a goal in the series before last night. He gets credit for 2. One of them just bounced off of Myers' hand. We thought it went in off Tanev initially, and Tanev initially got the credit. But then the other one was a banger. It was a fantastic play by Yanni Gourde. Got the puck behind the net, swung it around to Tolvanen. Tolvanen poked it past Devon Taves, and then Bjorkstrand flew in and scored off the post and in. And he could have had, I think there were 6 goals he could have had, maybe even 7 if you count the one at the end where Georgiev was way out of the net and like fell down on his stomach for some reason. But Bjorkstrand hit the post 3 times, and he got robbed on a 3-on-1. So I don't know what he ate for breakfast yesterday, but man, he was phenomenal in last night's game.
Yeah, and he's been kind of due. I think he's had a decent series even before the goal scored, meaning he's contributing in other ways, right? He's a possession guy too. So even when they had that lead, when he had the puck, it's time that Colorado doesn't have the puck, and he does a good job of holding on to it. He's smart with the puck. So it's beyond the goals, but last night was his breakout performance of this playoff. That's for sure.
And maybe as a Kraken, right? I mean, I think that was maybe his best game of the whole season. He was awesome last night. And a big part of his success was his line with Eeli Tolvanen and Yanni Gourde. And, they had such a tough matchup here throughout this whole series. And the funny thing about it is that at the beginning of the season, Dave Hakstol repeated over and over, we're not a big like matchup team. We don't worry too much about matchups. We roll 4 lines. That could not have been further from the truth here in how it played out, because those 3 guys were tasked with watching and defending against McKinnon almost every time he was on the ice. McKinnon came over the boards. There's Gourde, there's Tolvanen, there's Bjorkstrand. They're out there. And most of the time when McKinnon was out there, so too were Mikko Rantanen and Cale Makar. So, I mean, what a tough uphill battle. And some nights they did get the better of this Kraken line that I'm talking about, right? But then last night, I mean, Bjorkstrand comes away with 2 goals, and the only goal that Colorado officially scored, we'll talk about more on that in a moment, was on the power play, right? So like they came away with a 2-0 advantage effectively. It was really, really impressive by them. And I thought it was the forecheck, the way that they were able to get in offensively on that group to kind of throw them off. And they'd be out there, they'd just whack the puck out of the air. They'd pick off passes. They were just pests. They were just absolute pests in the offensive zone. And then all of a sudden the shift was over, and it was like, okay, well, dodge that bullet. Now we'll wait until they come back out next time. Right.
Yeah. And I love the second goal. You kind of went through it earlier when we were talking about Bjorkstrand, but started from Gourde, then to Tolvanen, and then created the opportunity for Bjorkstrand. There's been a couple of those this series, right? Where it's all 3 of those guys contribute to that. They might not have got assists on all of them, but even the first goal is the series. Remember the Tolvanen goal that he kind of intercepted as they were clearing, but it was a hard forecheck, so you might not get the assist. But broadly speaking, that line was incredible. And I watched the press conference last night, and you asked Hakstol about that line and the tough matchups, and he clearly like admitted it. Even though he like wasn't saying that in the first game, he kind of said, "Oh yeah, they had some tough matches," acknowledging your observation there. I loved seeing that, and it seemed like Axel is pretty level-headed in these things, but he had a huge appreciation for all the players. But for that question, he was really kind of calling out. He's like, "Oh yeah, they did a heck of a job."
Yeah, he said they did a hell of a job, and at the end, he said they did the job, and that's the best compliment that I can pay to them, because that was it was a really hard job that I asked them to do. So good stuff. I wanted to add on that second goal that you were referencing there. It actually started with Philipp Grubauer breaking up a Nathan McKinnon pass. He put his stick out in the lane and stopped a pass from getting through. So, so there you go. Next one, the video challenge heard around the world from not Tim Ohashi, but him Ohashi and Brady Morgan. They're the video analyst guys. Man, what a gutsy play. And to take you through it. So the Colorado looked like they had tied it, right? And you're like watching it like, oh no, this is it. This is the thing that we've been waiting for it to happen. McKinnon just has a one-time blast from the top of the slot, beats Grubauer. And then as the crowd's coming alive, you see the ref go over to the box and you're like, wait a minute here. What are we doing? Right. And you knew from the last game, because that's 2 in 2 games, that like they're going to get this right if they're going to call it. And so they called it. And sure enough, I mean, when you saw it slowed down, I think it was Lehkonen was like a good foot offside. So great call. Hackstall said that they had called down even before the shot. They'd called down to the bench to say, hey, pretty sure that was offside. And then they had 100% confidence that it was going to be waved off. Hackstall was like, from a coach's perspective, there's always a little bit of doubt, but they gave me very strong confidence that it was going to work.
Yeah, and usually, I mean, I don't know, have the data on the offsides challenges, but those are usually, you got to be pretty sure about it, unless it's a drastic situation where you're just clinging for dear life. But usually it's a good sign. But as watching from home or on a TV, I didn't see it initially at all.
No.
And so even when you can see sometimes when you're at a game, the coaches are like looking down at the monitors, or they're calling up to the video squad. What a break. A break.
Oh, a huge break. Yeah. And a big turning point, right? I mean, 2-2 game. If they get that wrong, it's a 2-2 game and they go to a penalty kill for the failed challenge. So, I mean, they have to get it. They just have to get that right. And they do it. Wipes the goal off the board. I mean, unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. All right. Here we go. We're just going to do this again now. That's the crazy thing about this, is I felt like I have put, and I'm sure you felt this way too, so much emotional investment into this first series.
Yeah.
And now the Kraken go back to work against the Dallas Stars tomorrow. Tuesday is when it starts. So nice long break for them. Unbelievable. I don't know if I'm ready for it. Are you ready for it?
I'd like at least one more day.
Yeah.
You know? But okay, I guess so. Right. What are your thoughts on Dallas?
I mean, there's a reason that this was one of the matchups I didn't really want, right? Coming into the playoffs, we knew all along that eventually you have to beat everybody. If you're going to, go on a deep run, you have to play and beat everybody. The reason I didn't really like it is just because they didn't have much success against them in the regular season. They did win. I think it was one overtime game, if I'm not mistaken.
They were 1-1-1. So and that one win is overtime. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, Jake Ottinger has been excellent. They looked really good in that first series. So it's going to be a tough test, right? Nobody thought Seattle could beat Colorado in the first series. They did it. So are they going to be able to get past them? Who knows? I think it's a deeper team, so it's going to be a different look, different matchup. But we'll see. What do you think?
Ottinger really scares me more than anything here. I think they played Dallas relatively tough. There was just one game where it was a little bit of a one-sided, but even then it wasn't the worst effort. But I mean, I think they can win. Right. I definitely think they can win. It's Ottinger that kind of frightens me, but I think, hot goaltenders, and Ottinger's arguably probably the best goalie remaining in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now. So,
well, unless Philipp Grubauer keeps playing the way he played last night.
Well, I'm just being realistic about that. Ottinger's played well all year, and we all know what Ottinger can do in the playoffs. So we'll see.
And I think Rupi Hens has been like red hot. So hopefully they've been off for a couple of days. So hopefully he's cooled.
Yeah, they all cool. Yeah.
All right. Well, good stuff. The Kraken did it. They won Game 7. We may never forget this. So what a day. What a 24 hours it has been. What a series that was against the Avalanche. And here we go on to round 2. For Sound of Hockey, Darren Brown and John Barr. Cheers.